What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another NCAA Dynasty series. We will be recapping what happened in Week 5 and take a look at what's going to be taking place in Week 6. So with further ado, let's get into it. So Week 5 had plenty of storylines. Arkansas upset the number 8 Texas A&M Aggies 35-31. It was a pretty impressive win on Arkansas' standpoint. They had a really good defensive stand in the second half. And because of this, Arkansas is now ranked in the top 25. They come in at number 21. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of the other storylines across the league. So you had a big game with number 3 and number 4, Notre Dame and Oklahoma. This one really wasn't close. Notre Dame rightfully showed why they deserve to be the number 2 team in the country. They took care of business, beating Oklahoma 31-13. Kentucky and Florida. Florida traveled to Kentucky, ranked number 9 in the country, where they fell short by a large margin. Kentucky had control of this game the whole entire way through. Going into the fourth quarter, they were up 35-7. Kentucky taking care of business and knocking Florida back to number 23. Let's go ahead and take a look at the top 25 polls after this past week. I'll tell you what, let's go ahead and take a look at the schedule of Week 5 and see what happened and see how we got there. So there was the game of the week, Arkansas versus Texas A&M, 35-31. Big upset win for Arkansas. They took care of business, and they deserve to be ranked in the top 25 after that one. You had Cincinnati holding off the UCF Knights 27-24 in overtime. Cincinnati holding on to that number 8 rank. You had Minnesota taking on Iowa, barely escaping a narrow win. Iowa had control of this game for most of the game. Minnesota ended up coming back and scoring 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter that ultimately allowed them to escape with the win, 31-28. And there was that big game in Kentucky. And there was the big game of Notre Dame and Oklahoma. Arkansas State takes care of business against Missouri. Clemson barely escaping Wake Forest, beating them 35-28. Because of this, Clemson would jump from number 2 to number 3, and Notre Dame would take that second place spot in the polls. If it wasn't for a late fourth quarter touchdown, this game could have gone either way. Clemson takes care of business in the fourth quarter, barely escapes an upset. USC undefeated this year, fixing to crack the top 10 if they continue this streak. And then you had Nick Saban taking care of business against his former offensive coordinator Lane Kiffin. Alabama comes on top 44-28. They keep that number 1 rank in the polls. So, exciting week, a couple of upsets. Let's go ahead and take a look at the top 25 polls after Week 5. So the top 25, you have Alabama ranked number 1, followed by Notre Dame. Clemson at number 3. Then you have Wisconsin at 4, followed by Georgia at 5. That makes up the top 5 teams. Closing out the top 10, you got Oklahoma, who fell back after losing to Notre Dame, Minnesota, Cincinnati, Ohio State, and Auburn. Oklahoma State, after losing to West Virginia, fell back from number 7 to 17. They fell pretty far in the polls. Florida falling from number 9 to number 23, probably the biggest gap. Two teams that haven't been here yet this season, Arkansas and Nebraska, both having pretty big wins. Arkansas against number 8 Texas A&M last week. Nebraska, I believe, beat a number 3 Ohio State team earlier this year. Now let's go ahead and take a look at others receiving votes. You have Tennessee, North Carolina, UAB, Oregon, Boise State, Louisville, and Kansas State. Oregon and Tennessee both dropped out. Let's go look at the Heisman frontrunners. You got KJ Jefferson, who's been playing pretty solid despite not starting a game yet this season. He's come in and relieved an injured Felipe Franks every game this year, honestly. Kind of funny if you ask me. But he is leading the Heisman race. Let's go ahead and take a look at his stats. 68 completions on 102 attempts, 1,055 yards passing, 8 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, almost a 70% completion rating. Where he's really made a difference is on the ground. He has 89 rushing attempts for 472 yards, about 118 yards per game with 13 rushing touchdowns. He could be on the brink of capturing that rushing record held by a QB in a season. Nonetheless, college football career. The longest run he's had was 58 yards, and he has 5 rushes over 20 yards. He's followed by Garrett Broshek of Wisconsin. Broshek has 413 yards rushing this season, followed by 214 yards receiving, 1 receiving touchdown, 7 rushing touchdowns. Ian Book of Notre Dame, he's been lights out. We played them earlier in the season, and they're going places. They're going places. I would not be surprised if they're in the national championship. Connor Blumrick has yet to play this season. I have no idea why he's in the Heisman hunt, but heck, this is NCAA, so you see crazy stuff. Justin Fields, on the other hand, he's slowly on his way out. It's really early on, if you ask me. This list can change drastically here in the next 2-3 weeks, so this is what it looks like right now, though. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of the games going on in Week 6. You have a big game right here, TCU versus Oklahoma. TCU remains in the number 24 slot. Oklahoma falling back to the number 6 slot after losing to Notre Dame. Let's go ahead and see who Kirk is picking on this one. Looks like Kirk's going with TCU, and rightfully so. I expect Oklahoma to have a bit of a hangover after a Notre Dame upset. You know, Notre Dame came in there and they did not make this a close game. They came in and they completely took control of the situation, and honestly, I expect Oklahoma to have a bit of a hangover after that. Another big matchup, you have Iowa State and Texas. Let's go ahead and take a look and see who Kirk's rolling with on this. He's rolling with Texas, but honestly, I would have to go with Iowa State myself. Iowa State's been a solid program over the past few years. They're really building themselves up into something nice over there. And more importantly, they know how to compete. I think Iowa State might escape this one with a win. You have an undefeated Kansas team. Looks like Les Miles is taking care of business over there at Kansas. It looks like College Game Day is going to be visiting Ann Arbor. You got Minnesota at Michigan. Michigan number 18 in the country, whereas Minnesota's number 7. Minnesota is undefeated. Michigan is 2-2 with a loss in conference play. It's going to be tough. If Michigan can't hold this one, it's going to be tough for them to rebound for the rest of the season. I like Minnesota. Minnesota's been a pretty solid program on the upcoming recently, and I think Minnesota's going to come and take care of business over here in Ann Arbor. Let's go ahead and see what Kirk thinks, and Kirk's thinking the same thing. We'll have to keep an eye on this one and see what happens. And for the most part, that's all you have to look forward to in Week 6. We're going to cut this episode short, and we'll see you guys in Week 7.